for option 2, so talking about how folic acid fortification has an impact on NTD prevalence and kind of how the menstrual cycle fits in with all of that. So let's start with what an NTD is. That's a neural tube deficit, which is a congenital malformation of the brain and spinal cord caused by a failure of the neural tube to close during early embryogenesis. That's a mouthful. So what does that mean, or what causes that, right? We have neural crest cells in early development, and they have a huge demand for folate. Folate's going to aid them in their growth, their differentiation, and their migration. And without it, we find deficits such as spina bifida or anencephaly, unfortunately. Now, because of this, in the 90s at some point, there was some studies about the effects of folic acid fortification, and they found a reduction of NTDs by 50 to 75%. Pretty significant, to the point where in 1998, we in the US established a folic acid fortification mandate. So now a lot of our foods incorporate this, and 50 other states followed suit. We can check out a quick chart for that. Not that one, this one, provided by the CDC. So we can see the reduction happening wherever this was implemented by pretty significant percentages. And with that, what we see, those numbers in the US correlate to about 1,300 births per year that are avoiding those NTDs. And each birth is saving, we'll say, $800,000 in healthcare costs for a person that is born with any of these defects. So bringing this into a menstrual cycle, let's just quickly review what a menstrual cycle looks like, what it goes through. Here we see the two phases, a follicular phase and a luteal phase, named so because a follicle is developing and because there's a corpus luteum. Each very important. So we have a follicle that becomes our oocyte, which is stimulated to be released by this luteinizing hormone. Obviously, the follicle-stimulating hormone was growing the follicles, and these came from our anterior pituitary, which was then stimulated by gonad-releasing hormone from the hypothalamus. Some good endocrinology going on there. With the corpus luteum being present, we increase progesterone, which increases our endometrium, the wall of our uterus that is necessary to plant our oocyte for fertilization to become a zygote. With all of that, pardon my tongue-tiedness being in this video, with all of that, it's about a 28 phase to go period to go through both of those phases. And if we become pregnant at that 14-day period, we may not notice until we cycle back through it another 28 days, maybe even longer, like when you realize, oh, I'm late. That could take another week, about putting us at a 35-day mark. Well, if we're doing that and say we're not eating the fortified foods, then we're not getting folic acid. And let's say we got pregnant though, right? So there's these 28 to 35 days where we may not be getting proper nutrients for those neural crest cells. And that's important because they need this, they need that folate during a critical development period of the 23 to 28 day mark. So if we don't know we're pregnant and we're not getting fortified nutrients such as leafy greens, so spinach, asparagus, broccoli, beets were in there, or if we're not getting cereals and grains. Kellogg's bran is great for it, and so is enriched white rice and plain bagels, which is great. I have plain bagels in my fridge, so I'm happy to hear about that. If a woman's not eating all of that, we will result in those NTDs, sadly. And it's just because that critical period occurs when a woman may just not know she's pregnant. That's kind of how all of that wraps together. Another reason for the NTDs, just on a side note, could be just malabsorption. Some women don't take folate up very well, and so hopefully they're aware of that. But it's possible they may not, so it's hard to avoid. They may know it going into their second pregnancy to have a healthier birth going forward.